Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host with the most, Joe Kuzma, and I'd like to welcome you back to the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. I am flying solo today without my usual co-host, Brian E. Roach, who flew solo without me on Monday. I owe a debt of gratitude to the host with the least. I could hear Brian giggling when he listens to this and hearing that, but I do owe Brian a great debt of gratitude because I was recovering from a wedding and I really didn't want to talk about the Le'Veon Bell contract situation as much as he did, but lo and behold, here I am. I'm going to be talking about that. I feel as though Terry Fletcher should be here today, but she was unavailable because I got a lot of WTFs to drop, and this is really the running back edition of this show. Once again, I know I covered some of this with yet another member of Steel City Underground, and one of the newest members, actually, Mitchell Reese. We talked about the running back depth chart not too long ago, and there's some other back episodes that if you are a new listener to our program, I encourage you to go back and check out some of the interviews we've had. We had a pair of the rookie tight ends on different episodes. That would be University of Pitt product, Scott Orndorff, and then there's Faison Odom as well, who came from Fordham. Most recently got to talk with the second-year wide receiver DeMarcus Ayers, and few and far between there were some episodes with other veterans and former Steelers, and we got some more surprises up our sleeve, of course. But before I dig into today's episode, I want to encourage anyone and everyone who listens to go to our special link, steelcityunderground.com/tickets. It's only said here on the show. I know somebody said they were looking for it. You got to type in the /tickets part because it's only for our listeners. There will be some specials with StubHub, our official partner, our sponsor. We thank them every time we have this show for that opportunity. But if you're checking out anything, maybe you're looking at the kickoff weekend up in Cleveland like I am, head on over to that link, steelcityunderground.com/tickets. I know we push it. We only do so because we know a lot of you are already looking at tickets. If you're going to do that anyways, kick us a little bit of credit, kind of like mentioning, hey, we heard that on Steel City Underground, so we're going to go there to /tickets. We're going to click on that link. It costs you nothing more. Sometimes there's a special running. It'll cost you even less. Gives us a little bit of credit, sticks a feather in our cap, makes the sponsor happy. So we appreciate each and every one of you who, I know sometimes when there's this kind of corporatization of everything and you get advertisements and stuff stuffed in here, hey, just trust us. We're all in this boat together. So we definitely appreciate you listening. We love each and every one of you subscribers. But then there are some comments that I get on social media that are just insane. And I'm talking about this Le'Veon Bell situation. Look, folks, I don't want to repeat or rehash a lot of what Brian talked about just the other day, but I do want to bring up some important details here. For one, we didn't know what the actual offer or one of the offers floated by Bell may have been. This is rumored. It was leaked. It's Tom Pelissero who published it on Twitter. There's some other folks who chimed in, such as Jim Wexell, who does a great job covering the Steelers. There's the good old Ian Rappaport, where you can flip a coin as to whether or not he's right or wrong. Oftentimes very wrong, but they all chimed in on this, and Tom Pelissero was the first to break the news on Le'Veon Bell being averaged, I guess, $12 million a year average, which his tag this year comes in at 12.1. If he's tagged again in 2018, it's going to be in upwards of $14 million. Both figures are guaranteed. They combine for a 2-year average of $26 million, assuming he's tagged again by the Steelers next season. Now, we know about all the risks, this, that, and the other thing. I get really bent out of shape, though, when people are talking about, well, he's an injury risk. Well, it sucks he hurt his groin. I mean, that can happen to anybody. Running backs, they're taking some of the most punishment of anyone. I mean, quarterbacks, the whole nature of the game is for them to get hit. The guys that are usually doing the hitting, they have long careers. Look at James Harrison, at 39 years old. Running backs don't get north of 30 in this league. So I can't blame Lev Bell, who's actually pretty young at this point of his career compared to some, for trying to cash in or sensing more worth or value for him. So Tom Pelissaro says here, though, this is what supposedly Lev Bell had declined, was $30 million over the course of the first 2 years, $42 million over 3, and he says per sources, of course. So he's not. I'm using him as the source, as the secondhand information of his sources. And in order for him to say this as a source, he had to have corroborated this with several people. Tom is somebody I feel is reputable enough to lean upon here. So Bell, let's talk about this. Just doing the simple math. $12 million in average, but $30 million for the first 2 years tells me 12 times 2 is 24. That's 2 seasons, and that tells me there's probably $6 million on top of that. That's a signing bonus, and it was probably that $6 million was the only thing guaranteed, because the Steelers really only do guaranteed deals when it comes to signing bonuses. Now, there's some great information that's out there as far as in regards to, hey, the Steelers, they hold up their end of the deal when it comes to any type of contracts, but they do this the way they do this, and you're not going to get them to do any differently. So there's some information that Brian really had in a great article that just dropped today that you could check out on that in regard to something that was published by Jason Fitzgerald over on Over the Cap. And when you're looking at some of the things that the Steelers have done here in the past, Antonio Brown, for instance. Antonio Brown gets a $68 million contract extension earlier this year, okay? And he has a $19 million signing bonus, which is the guaranteed portion of his contract, and that's basically all upfront money. He also has roster bonuses that are coming up. So when you take a look at people saying, well, Le'Veon Bell, and there were all these headlines, they made my eyes roll. Le'Veon Bell's turning down this monster contract. Yeah, it's a big contract for a running back. He's already setting the market or resetting the market like he wants to. Now, I have to laugh. The reasoning, and this was Ike Taylor on NFL Network, apparently talked to Le'Veon, and he said he wants to be paid like a number 1 running back and a number 2 receiver. Well, Brian kind of knocks that one out of the park in his article, but not to steal his thunder. I wish Brian were available to be here so he could defend some of his comments. But I had argued if Bell was a number 2 receiver, he was a number 2 receiver during the times where Martavis Bryant hadn't necessarily been around. The Steelers had a mess of a wide receiver situation last year with Marcus Wheaton getting hurt, and then, of course, they didn't have Bryant in their plans. We saw guys like Kobe Hamilton and DeMarcus Ayers, who I'd said we'd just spoken to, all come onto the active roster at various points throughout the year. Darius Hayward-Bay was on and off with injuries, as was Sammy Coates. You had a ton of guys that were targets, so it wasn't very hard for someone who had been available for all of the year, all 16, well, not even all 16 games. I got to take that back because, of course, he was suspended for 3. And, of course, over the course of 2 seasons, he's been suspended for 5. He sat out. He missed 4 last year because he sat out Week 17. They rested him for the playoffs, which was smart. In a quote, I have the quotations with my fingers up in the air here, a meaningless game against Cleveland Browns, because it really didn't mean anything as far as standing. So a bunch of people sat. Big Ben, Antonio Brown, totally cool with it. I've always hated that, but in a whole other way, when it's my team, I don't hate it so much. I used to hate it with fantasy. That's the reason why you guys don't play fantasy leagues that go into Week 17 for your championship, because then you're without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. They're playing the Browns again this year. You have to assume it's going to be the same type of situation. At least I do, because it's the Cleveland Browns. So anyways, just getting back on track here when it comes to the dollars and cents, more than likely, if anything was guaranteed in this contract, as they're saying, $12 million per. I'm saying 24, another $6 million for a signing bonus up front, so maybe $18 million guaranteed year one, and then that's it. That's according to Ian Rappaport, just 1 year guaranteed. Now there's some wishy-washy, flimsy kind of deal with that because Jim Wexell was thinking maybe a little bit more, maybe the $30 million was guaranteed. But I think if that's the case, Le'Veon Bell signs this. He's behind a great offensive line. He's not going to get the same type of situation if he goes to a bad team. I had somebody say, oh, well, trade him away to Jacksonville. Well, I'm going to bring that up in a little bit here. But Jacksonville has Leonard Fournette. They have a rookie, fourth guy picked overall or sixth guy picked overall. I don't have it in front of me. It's going off of memory. But, I mean, he was a monster in college. And if he pans out to be anything or anybody, they don't need Le'Veon Bell. That's just semantics, okay? And there's not a whole lot of teams. Somebody said San Francisco. I don't want to get into the trade thing just yet, but San Francisco, they may have the money, but I don't know. Their new general manager, that Froggy, he seems like a savvy guy for all the moves he made in the draft, so we'll see what ends up going on. What I'm getting at here is if Bell, let's just assume that the Steelers you're not going anywhere. They're going to Kirk Cousins this guy to death and just keep franchise tagging him without giving him a deal that he wants. Now, I think this was a fair deal. You're saying he's going to make $30 million in the first 2 years. He's taking a gamble because the guaranteed money over 2 years is going to be $26 million. He's going to short himself $4 million over 2 years. If you're betting on yourself and being healthy, then what's the problem? You're going to get $30 million. You're going to get $4 million above 2 franchise tags, which is a total of 26. Okay? But if you're maybe feeling, I've been hurt a few times, I need some financial security, well, you're going to want to play on the tag twice. So you're betting on yourself making it through this year, but maybe not 2018. That's the only thing I could think of because you're still shorting yourself this season. You would have probably made about $6 million more, but the actual guarantee is less if he takes the deal, the long-term deal, versus the franchise tag. I'm saying about $6 million difference. It's a $6 million difference in both ways, just based on the math and some guesstimation here, that $6 million less to play on the tag for year one, but $6 million more guaranteed over the 2 years, but it doesn't make sense because he would have made $4 million more. So if you're banking on yourself and you're saying I'm going to be this great player and I'm going to be around, and that's not to mention I'll make another 12 over that, but see, then that's 12. That's not the 12 this year, the 14 next year, and thinking that the pay scale is going to keep going up. Well, his age is also going to keep going up, and if he has a lot of carries, there are going to be some teams that just aren't concerned. They're not going to care. I think the Steelers are still – I think this still gets done in 2018, but I think the big problem, the what do you want to say, elephant in the room, as I like to say, isn't necessarily these figures of guaranteed cash and financial security. I mean, this was going to make him the richest running back. He's the richest running back now under the franchise tag. McCoy up in Buffalo with the Bills, he's making $8 million, okay? So there's like a 150% increase of resetting the market here. You're still important, Le'Veon Bell. So what's the deal here? I don't get what the fans and some of the people that have just instantly turned on this guy. I think there's just a major misunderstanding of how these contracts and negotiations, everything work. It has to do with the franchise tag, and trust me, I'm far from an expert. There are experts. This is why I reference guys like Over the Cap, like Ian Whetstone, and guys of that nature that really know their stuff over there. I get lost in some of this legalese myself, but from the most that I understand, I could tell you, I don't think Le'Veon Bell hates the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers hate Le'Veon Bell. I think both sides see the risk to doing anything in 2017. That's the catch-22. If I take this deal, will I be stuck without money that I would have otherwise in the second or third year? Maybe I become a free agent third year down the road, and I could really hold some people hostage. Or you could just end up screwing yourself over. I reference Kelvin Beachum, for example. Kelvin Beachum is a guy, starting left tackle, 7th-round pick, bargain player. Steelers are basically faced with, they want him They don't do deals within the season. So before this regular season kicks off several years ago, they're thinking to themselves, we got two guys that are going to be becoming free agents on that side, on the left side of the line. You got Ramon Foster, and then you've got Kelvin Beachum. And I was thinking to myself, they could only afford to keep one. And instead of Beachum taking kind of like, it's a team-friendly deal, it still would have made him a wealthy man. He gambled to go into free agency the following year, maybe leverage some of that. We saw Dante Hightower try and do that coming to Pittsburgh and try and use that as leverage to get a better deal with the New England Patriots. That type of stuff happens all the time. Look at Emmanuel Sanders, for example. Kelvin Beachum ends up blowing out, I think, his knee, MCL, ACL, something of that nature. And then he's gone because Alejandro Villanueva takes his job. And boom, just like in an instant, it's done, just like that. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at this. Now, Bell somehow has, I don't know what kind of blackmail, or what kind of dirt he has on people in the NFL front office. But if he gets suspended again, it's not going to be for a year. It's not going to be for 12 games. It's not going to be for 10 games. It's not going to be for 8 games. It's not going to be for 6 games. It's going to be for 4 games because of whatever that situation was. And I know people still say, well, he admitted to this, or he got caught with this, or he did this. Okay, he missed the test. But be it whatever reason that he may have missed the test and everything surrounding that, I don't care. But there's still the history there that the guy has been suspended in the last 2 years, back to back. So is he going to stay clean and out of trouble going forward? He's missed, I think, like maybe 5, 6. I'm trying to think how many games he missed after he got knocked out of the Bengals game, and I just had this compiled too. He played 10 games 2 years ago, but he missed 2 of those with suspensions. So I think 5 games total is the number he's missed due to injury, because he got plowed like in the last game of the regular season, 2-3 years ago, and then you had that miserable Ravens game with Ben Tate. He got hit earlier in the year. The following season came back was strong. They played all of last year, and then the wheels fall off in the AFC title game with the groin injury, and apparently that's all good from seeing him play basketball and whatnot too. So with Lev Bell, like I said, it's not something that I'm ready to hate. I think the Steelers realize the risk. They do a really huge deal. They've done some really bad ones in recent memory. I mean, there's Lamar Woodley, is still the highest paid Steelers defender, I believe, and at the time he was for sure. And they were still paying for him 2 years after he wasn't even on the team anymore. It just cleared the books in 2015, I think. And it's just like, why would you want to go through that all over again? I think they got burned once, and they're like, you know what, we're not going to do this again. And Woodley just couldn't stay on the field. He never had a double-digit sack season again, and then he ends up being released. And they do like all the funny magic and the different, like I said, the legalese allows them to kick some of it forward, kick some of it back, and they're getting out from underneath contracts and money that they could be spending for other players. And you want to know why they don't go after free agents during the free agency period? It's because they don't have the cap room. They don't have the relief. They don't have the space. And some of that happens from keeping your own great players that you draft. Lamar Woodley was great and then earned that contract. He was franchise tagged. They did the same thing. They ripped it up and they gave him like a record-setting deal. And then the guy, I hate saying this about players because I love the Lamar Woodley and I think he's a great guy too, but he was worthless. He was not worth that contract. He didn't end up being worth it. Based on his previous play and performance, he was worth that contract. But you don't know that until after it's played out. And when it was played out, it ended up turning bad. There's another one, and I don't think I wrote about this in one of the many articles. I had a lot of different angles to this, as did everyone here. Cortez Allen's another guy. 4 years, $32 million, something of that nature. That might not be exactly it, but how did that work out? That one was bad too. So that guy's finally off the books. In fact, they didn't kick that around. They just absorbed the whole thing last year. And they're just tired. They don't want to get stuck with this same stuff again. So when you're looking at Le'Veon Bell, it's like he does have an injury history. Most of it dirty hits. The same thing I say about Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, we're paying Ben Roethlisberger. How many times has he sat out games? So I don't get the hate for Lev Bell being hurt. I do get the thing with the stupidity off the field, being caught with LeGarrette Blount in the car and then missing whatever tests for whatever reasons. There's smoke, there's fire, okay? I get the perception. Doesn't mean he's a bad guy, doesn't mean he's going to do it again, but fool me twice. And not fool me once, fool me twice. Play under the tag this year. Let's see how it goes. Could tag next year, rip it up, give you the money that you're going to get there. You're still getting the $12 million in 2017. This deal, similar deal to it, could still be on the table going forward. Maybe make him a Steeler for life. All is said and done. We just don't want it to become a distraction. Now, there are some people that are out there that just they're totally anti-Bell now. It's trade the guy away. It's we have James Conner. We don't need him. I think I made a good point about James Conner when I was talking with Mitchell and whether or not he is the future. And I've got some statistics that are going to be coming out here shortly about how many carries Le'Veon Bell, or how many just plays, how many offensive plays he's been in versus somebody that's been a backup. Now, I'm not counting when DeAngelo Williams, who's a backup, comes in and becomes a starter. I'm talking about the Steelers literally use a bell cow as a running back. And Bell has something like, I think, 1,082 snaps to 147 when you compile all the other snaps the backups played. So in this case, a backup could be DeAngelo Williams playing behind Le'Veon Bell, or Fitzgerald Toussaint, Jordan Todman, Daryl Richardson playing behind DeAngelo Williams when he's filling in for Bell due to injury or suspension. And those guys compiled, what did I say, 146, 147. They didn't have that many carries. I think Daryl Richardson had a total of like 5. I want to say Fitzgerald Toussaint the one year, he came in for Cleveland game. They're always playing Cleveland at the end of the year, so you get all these things mixed up. But 2 seasons ago, and that's how you ended up with Jordan Todman and Fitzgerald Toussaint in a wild card game down in Cincinnati. DeAngelo Williams gets hurt. Fitz has, I don't know, he plays like 33 snaps or whatever, but it's not like these guys had a whole lot of carries or a whole lot of playing time, okay? It is basically whoever the starter is, and then everybody else. They had a 10th of the playing time that Bell has had when Bell is on the field. And I didn't do it for DeAngelo too, but it's a very similar breakdown. It's not like DeAngelo came in. DeAngelo was literally running back 1A to Bell's running back 1, okay? 95% of the playing time. You weren't seeing Fitz Toussaint or Jordan Todman out there. Maybe it's because they weren't capable. So maybe I'm downplaying this whole James Conner thing, but I do know that they also like Niall Davis. Niall Davis is a veteran, may have the edge. We've seen the Steelers gradually ease some of these rookies in. I mean, Martavis Bryant didn't play right away. We didn't even see Sammy Coates his rookie year. Really only the guys we have to go by because there wasn't anybody in that same role. You saw LeGarrette Blount completely up and quit, get mad, and leave because he wasn't getting touches. He wasn't getting playing time several years ago before that Ravens game that I just talked about. I mean, it's Bell or nothing. It's the starter or nothing. So if Bell's here and he plays under the tag for 2017, he's available for all 16 games. I don't know that we're going to find out what kind of player James Conner is. I don't think the Steelers paying a guy $12 million are going to be like the whole Brandon Boykin situation, which is completely different because the guy wasn't in the system and comes in the middle of the preseason, the middle of training camp due to an injury and has to come get up to speed. I don't think they're just going to sit him on the bench. Plus, there was conditional draft picks for his playing time that may have kept him on the bench. You're not going to see a situation where it's like, we're just not going to play this guy. It's like Victor Cruz saying whatever he said about the Giants and them letting him go, and they tried to devalue me by not throwing the ball. You really think like a player, and a future Hall of Famer like Eli Manning, who's won 2 Super Bowl rings, is like, well, there's Victor Cruz. He's wide open, but I'm not going to throw him the ball because we're trying to devalue him. Get out of town. That stuff's kind of ridiculous. So you're not going to devalue Le'Veon Bell. They're saying you're going to run the wheels off of him. They've been running the wheels off of him. Do you expect anything to change? I do not. It's not going to change. So it's Bell or nothing. Bell or high water. That sounds pretty good. There's a good pun to go along with the bell cow, right? So in that regard, What are we going to expect James Conner to really do but maybe appear on the field 3 to 5 times a game, provided Niall Davis doesn't cut into that the first 4, 5, 6 games of the year. So for the latter half of the season, the last 8 to 10 games, maybe Connor's out there and he gets a carry or two each game at the best. I would like to know. I really do think he could be kind of a bruising goal line back. I think the Steelers have had issues with getting the ball into the end zone, in the red zone, particularly like the closer they are to the goal line. And that's not uncommon for most teams. Believe it or not, their red zone efficiency is pretty darn decent. Last year was better than 2015, but there's spurts where they don't score and everybody goes wild, and they're still better than most. I mean, come on now. The playoffs, they've made it there 3 years in a row. They've won the division 2 times out of that. You don't get there by not doing what you're supposed to do. It's not a trash team. It's not a dumpster fire, okay? There's just some really interesting takes on this whole deal, and to trade away Le'Veon Bell, it's not going to happen this year. There's a lot of risk. When they got rid of Santonio Holmes and he was a problem, that was they knew he was going to be suspended the first 4 games of the year, and the best they could do is get a 5th-round pick from the New York Jets. They're not going to take a 5th-round pick in a trade for Le'Veon Bell. If Bell wasn't the exclusive rights franchise tag tender player, try saying that 5 times fast. If he's not exclusive and he's the non-exclusive, he could have negotiated with other teams, and if another team comes up with an offer, the Steelers can say, oh, we're going to match that offer. But if they decide not to, that's too much money. We'll spend it elsewhere, whoever that other team may be. Let's say San Francisco. That's a name that's come up. 49ers. We've negotiated this with Le'Veon Bell. We're going to pay him $20 million a year. Kevin Colbert and company in that front office, Art Rooney too, they hear this news. They're sitting there and, yeah, no way. So San Francisco then has to send 2 first-round draft picks to the Pittsburgh Steelers as compensation. So the Steelers save money, and they get 2 first-round draft picks. Well, the 49ers mortgage their future, hope that the player they're receiving, who's maybe the best running back in the game, hasn't carried the ball too much, doesn't have too much wear and tear, and doesn't get in trouble and get suspended to where he's not even available on the field. And then you don't have your first-round draft pick for maybe the next 2 years. Steep price. Maybe one number 1 pick, but we've seen this happen with Darrelle Revis as well. And it was something where they exchanged a first-round pick with the Jets. The Jets love to trade. Look where the Jets have been, by the way, getting some of these players. Santonio Holmes, or they traded away Darrelle Revis. None of this stuff has really helped them. I've heard like some crazy comments. I've read one about like, hey, trade Bell to the Lions and we'll get their first-round picks and maybe we can get a player in exchange. Oh, come on. This doesn't work. Tampa Bay makes this deal with the Jets. The Jets get a first-round pick, and then they get a conditional 4th-round pick. And the whole experiment with Revis, I mean, he got 1 year. I think he was $16 million, and there was no guaranteed money beyond that first year, very similar to this offer that was given to Le'Veon Bell. They cut him. They let Revis go. He goes up to New England. And the rest is history. I don't like talking about the Patriots or any wise moves that they make, but how did that leave Tampa Bay or the New York Jets for the better? It didn't. Neither one of those teams benefited from it. The Patriots did. So we're talking about, okay, Connor's going to be, maybe doesn't get that many touches, but he might be the future. Give him a year. We'll see what he's got. He's not running for 1,000 yards this season. He's not going to have double-digit touchdowns unless all he's doing is vulturing him, a fantasy term that we use, from Le'Veon Bell, meaning he comes in on the goal line and he gets the touchdowns. They used to happen a lot. Mike Tolbert, a fullback, famous for that, San Diego Chargers and Carolina Panthers. He would take those touchdowns away on the goal line because he had bulldoze in there. Is James Conner necessarily the future replacement for Le'Veon Bell? Well, you got to take into account that Bell was taken in the 2nd round. A lot of people were thinking running backs devalued, but at the same time, you could get great value in the draft. Well, it's kind of changing. It's flip-flopping. When Bell was taken, only one guy went before him, and that was Gio Bernard to the Cincinnati Bengals. Bell was the second overall running back taken in that draft in 2013. He was taken ahead of Eddie Lacy, where there's a bunch of funny tweets that resurfaced that were talking about all the people complaining the Steelers didn't take Lacy. Turns out to be the better deal for the Steelers, right? So Connor is like the 8th overall guy, a running back taken, pick 100 and something. He was in the 3rd round. He's the conditional pick because they took Cam Sutton earlier in that same round. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the other teams got it right. Look how many people passed on Antonio Brown. So I get that much. But just from a talent kind of evaluation standpoint, and some of this has to deal with needs, so I don't want to say 31 other teams passed on James Conner, but there are 31 other decision makers that had to decide more than once through 3 rounds whether or not Conner would make their team a better football team. And all those teams went past that, and the Steelers said, well, we're going to give him a shot. I don't know that they necessarily gave him a shot thinking this guy could be a potential starter, but I think they still think he has potential to develop into being a solid player. I'm not against James Conner whatsoever. We talk about injury history, though, with Le'Veon Bell. Don't give him all that money. But we're relying on Conner, who's had a knee injury, and he got over Hodgkin's lymphoma and cancer-free. Great Cinderella story. Love James Conner. Cannot wait to see him succeed. I would be no more thrilled. But we have to understand from a reality-based standpoint that there are some running backs that have been taken recently. I don't think we've still truly seen whether or not Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon or players of that nature are going to be great or go on to have great NFL careers. I don't think Niall Davis, who's here for 1 year, is meant to be past 1 year if he makes it out of camp. We don't know. There's still some Terrell Watson, I think we mentioned, or Terrell, is it Terrell Watson? And then Trey Williams, who are there, Brandon Brown Dukes. You got some of these guys. You just never know. Might be on the practice squad, might squeak on the roster. Long shots, mind you, that could maybe Fitz Toussaint, still the guy over Niall Davis. So I don't think that the Steelers have a potential replacement on their roster yet. A potential replacement for Le'Veon Bell, probably going to happen if he's not signed long-term. They have the 2018 draft to think about it. They'll know by then what they're doing with Bell. They may not know. They may still have up until the deadline, and maybe they pull the trigger in 2019 on whoever the best running back available is if Bell's no longer a Steeler, because that free agency period will begin in like March. The draft will be at the end of April, early May. They have the time to figure this out. They've got a lot of time to figure it out. So, trading Bell, I don't think that can happen in 2017. Don't think it's even likely in 2018 unless somebody wants to take on that salary and unless they negotiate something and there's some big draft picks that are in there. That's a heavy bet, let me tell you. And it's just an equally heavy bet to expect James Conner to immediately fill the shoes of Bell. I think they're two different players. I like to see both succeed and get paid. So, while we're trying to pick and choose where everybody goes and how these things shake out, that's exactly what DeAngelo Williams is doing, because I told you this is the running back condition. So why don't we go to last year's backup? A lot of people say they should have never let him go. It wasn't that they let him go. They just didn't re-sign him. The guy's 34 years old. He's up there in age. He's not with anybody yet. But he's going to pick and choose and say that there's 28 teams that he would play for. That means there were 4 that he wouldn't. And on that list, the Cleveland Browns, don't have to mention the dumpster fire anymore. He quotes as saying that the Browns, mainly because they don't have a history of winning, I don't think they've ever had a winning season. They've had a couple, but it hasn't been too nice since they've returned to the league in 1999. The Dallas Cowboys, he says he was raised a 49ers fan, and he's always hated the Cowboys. Fair enough. I'm with you. Jacksonville Jaguars, another team where you can't find anything positive. He says, outside of the fact that they have pools in the stadium. I thought that was kind of funny. So he doesn't want to play. He wants to play for a contender, right? But he mentioned the Carolina Panthers initially. Just days later, they get rid of their general manager, who cited as having problems with other guys, such as Josh Norman. Gone, out the door. Well, Panthers came off of his list. Now, there were a few teams that were surprisingly not mentioned as part of this, and they were division rivals with the Steelers, like the Cincinnati Bengals or the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore definitely has a need. They do not have a proven running back. They didn't add anybody during the offseason. I think they're going to roll with what they got, like Terrence West. It might be a landing spot for DeAngelo. I would probably advise that as being another team I don't want to see him end up with. The Bengals have the aforementioned Giovanni Bernard. They went out and got Joe Mixon in the draft. They also have Jeremy Hill. They don't need DeAngelo Williams. I don't want to see him in those ugly stripes anyways. One team I can advocate for him not playing for, though he said, and I quote, "There wasn't a lot of hatred there. I will continue to speak on the side of being right. You look at all the championship rings they have. You cannot deny the fact they win. They continue to win on a consistent basis. I'm in the business of winning." He's talking about the New England Patriots. I would absolutely hate it, but in the same sense I said the 4 additional teams he shouldn't play for, I listed the Patriots. I also listed the Patriots as one of the 4 teams he should strongly consider playing for, and I didn't list the Steelers. I did say he shouldn't play for the Arizona Cardinals just for the fact that they destroy running backs. Beanie Wells, Ryan Williams, Rashard Mendenhall goes there and his career's done. David Johnson just got injured. Chris Johnson, Andre Ellington. Nobody has any luck there. Stay away from Steelers West. They love to sign Steelers players, but DeAngelo, you could do better. I don't know if they'll be a contender or not. That's hard to say. But some of the teams I thought that maybe he might be a fit for, LA Chargers, hard to say that now. I want to say San Diego still. They can maybe use a solid backup to Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's missed a handful of games here or there. And other teams, Oakland Raiders, they've already got an older veteran in Marshawn Lynch, but not a whole lot behind them. I don't know. DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard are okay, but I mean, this was a committee thing with Latavius Murray. I think they're going to give the rock early and often to beast mode. But I don't know if Marshawn Lynch is still the same player that he has, and he sat out a year and blah, blah, blah. So DeAngelo probably for one season might be best suited to go with the Green Bay Packers, who drafted 3 running backs in this year's draft, and they have a converted wide receiver in Ty Montgomery, who was still wearing, number 88 or whatever. He's still wearing a receiver jersey. He petitioned the league to get a running back number, and they didn't bite on that just yet. I don't think they're as convinced, just like I'm not, that Ty Montgomery is going to be the primary ball carrier in that backfield this year. I think that they're going to move ahead with some of the rookies that they took, such as Jamal Williams in the 4th round, who favorably compares to somebody maybe like a James Conner as far as what kind of impact will they have this year. Green Bay obviously made the NFC title game last year, the counterpart as they lost to the Falcons, just like the Steelers made the AFC title game and did not win in their championship conference matchup there. So DeAngelo, you can pick and choose, buddy, but I get it. You're going to want a decent amount of money in order to maybe – are you going to move to the West Coast where the cost of living is crazy just for 1 year opportunity to play with someone? I think the only fit is if it were somebody like New England. And let me tell you, New England's already got like 4 equally whoever they are running backs. Deion Lewis usually hurt. You got the Super Bowl guy and James White, Mike Jalisi, who came over from Buffalo, Rex Burkhead from Cincinnati. None of those guys are very exciting. The way that they mix and match and play whoever they want in that backfield, you can never guess who Bill Belichick's going to have carrying the football. He might be a fit there. But the very last thing I had to bring up on this episode, the running back special, before I drone on way too long on this episode, which I feel I already have, is that James Conner has the number 2 selling jersey, number 1 among rookies, but number 2 overall. He passed Dak Prescott. He's only behind Tom Brady, which how many more people are jumping on the Patriots bandwagon? Seriously? Like, Patriots fans don't own a Brady jersey? How long has he been there? Like 01 or something? I mean, I've had a Roethlisberger jersey since he's been a rookie. I have gotten wear and tear out of that. And I get it. You got to buy an additional one because you've worn it so much and it wears through. I just think it's kind of funny because the Patriots, like the Steelers, it's not like they changed jersey styles or anything. So people are still buying up the Tom Brady jerseys. Maybe it's because he's famous and people have known him, and you're going to be able to wear that jersey as long as you're a fan of that team, I guess. But James Conner just blows my mind. Like I said, 8th running back taken in the draft, late in the 3rd round, practically a 4th round guy. I totally get it. I mean, the guy, he beat cancer. He has this great story coming out of college. He's a hometown hero who anybody that's local, that's even if you're not a Pitt fan and you live in Pittsburgh, you know this guy's story and you got to love it. I get the support wholeheartedly. A lot of people think Bell's on his way out. What's better than buying a jersey when the rookies are under a 4-year contract with an option to renew, and they might be there for 6-7 years if they're a successful player and they end up panning out with whatever team that they're with. So I get it in that regard, but as a backup, as I mentioned previously in this same episode, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people wearing James Conner jerseys that could be disappointed in the 2017 season. And I'll leave it at that, folks. I always enjoy the discussions that we end up having. So feel free to leave your comments with us on our various social media sites, Facebook, Twitter. We monitor all of them. We're calling a few of them for another fan mail episode. You can email us at fanmail@steelcityunderground.com, as well as call the hotline at 203-900-4SCU. Until next time, my name is Joe Kuzma, and I wish that everybody be safe, be good, and that way I'll be able to catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.